and welcome to the 22nd episode of the Purple, Yellow, Red and Blue podcast, a Portugal the Man podcast. Something a little bit different today, but something kind of related to Portugal the Man. On this podcast, I'm joined by guests to talk about normally what's going on with Portugal the Man, but we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We would normally be talking about new releases, updates, live shows, catching up with guests, band stuff, experiences. You can find this podcast up on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Liam for artwork and distribution and things like that. My name is Mark, and today my guest joining me is...
It's Mel. Glad to be here again.
Hello, Mel. Nice to have you on this fine Sunday afternoon, early evening for both of us. You were just telling me you woke up a little bit. You had a nice little lay in this morning, or nice little late rise, or
Yeah. I'm a late sleeper,
late
so
sleeper.
pretty normal for me. Yeah.
Nice. Also, hope you're doing well. Hope your weekend's been good for you. Been up to anything today, yesterday?
Yeah, it's been pretty busy. Had a busy work week this week. And I was also having internet problems on Friday, and I had a big meeting at work, so I was working a little bit yesterday, unfortunately, to catch up. So
Oh,
my brain has just been that's probably also why I slept in a little later today, because my brain has just been going for nonstop for like the last 3 days.
yeah. I'm weird with sleeping in. I kind of do it a lot of the time, like a Saturday or a Sunday, but no, I'm well. Hope you're well. We're happy, everyone, to be doing another podcast in 2025. I just thought I'd do a bit of summary before we get going. So this one will be somewhat different to kind of past episodes that I've done. A while back, I was contacted by a company called Podcastathon. I've never heard of them, but they've obviously contacted me. They were contacting people who have podcasts and want to kind of have like a charity focused episode or like a something along those lines. Yeah, around the month of March. Now we're doing it a little bit later. This one will probably be out in early April, and in time they were trying to basically line them up all in March, kind of big charity causes, and I like the idea. So here we are. I thought I'd do one kind of wholly focused on charitable stuff. Obviously, Portugal the Man related as well. So the concept of this show will be charitable, but I kind of wanted like that little Portugal the Man DNA in there. So I decided focusing a show on the PTM Foundation. It'd be fine, but the Francis Changed My Life initiative, the GoFundMe, and the kind of focus towards her would be probably a lot better. I think it would work better. So this show will be focused on a recap about Frances and who is the daughter of John and Zoe in the group, her condition, types of conditions, as much knowledgeable information as we have, kind of just backtracking. And I'm joined by Mel because I previously had her on last year, and well, she was. We had a good chat about basically catching up about Francis, and I thought she was highly knowledgeable, so I thought I'd have her back. Thank you, Mel. I thought you were quite. I thought you were quite
Yeah.
knowledgeable, so I thought bring her on because there's only so much I can say that doesn't sound like someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. So bring someone on who's like a specialist in this field. Yeah, could you remind the people what you do for work? Because it's kind of is it related to this, or you're just highly passionate about it? I apologize, I can't quite remember, but
Yeah. So, yeah, my background is actually in rare disease research. I'm currently a medical writer, and most of my accounts that I currently work on are rare diseases. Not necessarily, I don't work DHDDS, as we'll talk about, as an ultra rare disease. So I absolutely do not work on DHDDS, but I work on a lot of other different types of rare diseases. And prior to me being a medical writer, I actually worked in translational research in mostly metabolic rare diseases, including some ultra rare diseases, which DHDDS is considered an ultra rare disease. And again, we'll get into more of what some of these words mean in a bit. But yeah, so in addition to this being my day job essentially for like the past, how long has it been now, almost a decade. um Disease, it's just something, advocacy is a part of it. When I was in the research space, we always had rare disease parents or rare disease patients themselves that would come in and talk about their disease and interact with us doing the those of us that were doing the research literally for their diseases. So that kind of it's I'm super lucky to have a job where I can see my job actually being translated directly into helping people. I've always been passionate when I started in college and stuff, kind of personalized medicine was always in the back of my head of what I wanted to kind of go into. And the rare disease space is really where, these people need kind of these personalized therapies and stuff for them just because they're so unique that it's not like, something like heart disease where millions and billions of people in the world have it. So, pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies are interested in them because they can make a product that gets a lot of use. Whereas with rare diseases, the complete opposite is true. A lot of money and research has to go into these therapies for these diseases, and they're not seen as money makers because, you know, there's only a few people in the world that have them. So unfortunately, that's the world we live in where money is, you know, how we get our things in life. So that's really awesome. I'm glad you picked this to do for your charity podcast because charity is how we get the word out and how we can get, money into funding certain things like this.
Yeah, thank you. I just thought it was a good opportunity to recap as well because basically every time I'll like leave in the description like the URL for the GoFundMe for Francis or a little bit of information about what's happened because I kind of feel like it's not my duty, but it's like it's important. Like I'm obviously using band's name and likeness and bits and pieces and artwork and visuals and stuff. The least I could do is at least go, here's the link as well, But everyone who's listening probably already knows that already. But as always, there'll be the links down below if you want to have a look and kind of investigate for yourself. Learn out if you've not heard about it, if it's your first time listening. I don't know why it would be. If it is, take the opportunity to. So yeah. And yes, thank you again. I didn't know you were a medical writer. I've never heard of that career. I've never heard of that like pathway. So that's cool. But I also probably
Yep.
haven't heard of every scientific career. So learning every day. So the first thing we wanted to cover was what is well I maybe we talk about the journey to getting to this diagnosis because it's been oh gosh we're in 2025, it's May, April. Fans have known about this, Mel, probably for what would you say, 18 months to 2 years. We've been knowledgeable about it. I don't know, unless
Yeah,
I'm miss.
I think it's been about 2 years because I feel like it kind of coincided with when their last album came out. I remember it kind of being linked with that from what I remember, which was in 2023.
Yes, yes, all that long ago. Yeah, it was right before Chris Black Changed My Life came out, wasn't it? So, and at the time I was thinking, oh wow, that this must be serious because you wouldn't normally put out a charitable thing right before you have like a major album release, would you? I just feel like those two things would be they've kind of the conversation would kind of cover each other up a little bit, kind of suffocate each other a little bit. Um, not to talk horribly, but like if someone who doesn't know the band is like, oh, they've got a charity for their kid and they're putting out music for this, like some people could maybe draw different conclusions and think, what are they kind of doing here? Are they trying to like just make more money out of us? But obviously we know that's not the reasoning. But I'm just thinking broad picture about it because you know, broad audience,
I mean,
unfortunately, with
yeah, I was gonna say I disagree with that. I It's really hard, sort of, when you have a child with a disorder like this, and especially somebody with a child, like you want to keep them private. You usually don't want to kind of put them in the spotlight, but that's kind of like the catch 22 with especially rare disease is that if you don't kind of share your story and get it out there, then you can't get help kind of thing. So
No,
that's
true.
kind of like a lot of pressure in the rare disease space is whether you want to or not, you kind of have to put yourself out there. And I think it was just kind of like the timing of her diagnosis, which was in 2021. So they had already known about the diagnosis for a little bit before the album came out. Um, so I think it was probably just, they were ramping everything up and they were kind of, it was just kind of the timing was kind of right and it just kind of happened all at the same time. And if they could kind of use that kind of like promotion to get everything out there, it kind of like goes hand in hand just because a lot of people, they don't have an international platform like an internationally known band might have to kind of get that out there. Um, so it was kind of an unfortunate but unique opportunity, I think, to be really brave about it. And I mean, we know both John and Zoe um, are, they're kind of private. They don't like to really talk about a lot of stuff. So I really applaud them, and it just shows how much that they care about Francis.
Yeah, no, I completely get your the point of view. Yeah, no, I could absolutely see that as well, and they are very private people as well. And yeah, I didn't know about the diagnosis in 2021. Maybe I read that up or whatever beforehand. I just glanced my memory, but yeah, just and obviously taking advantage of being more notable and people knowing them of like, hey, we have an opportunity to actually kind of spread the word here, as you said, in a way. Yeah, you would take the advantage because as we said previously, these kind of rare diseases, they're not money makers, so you've kind of got to do the hard legwork yourself. So the opportunity to go out there and be like,
Yep.
hey, and I reckon they probably put it off as long as they could. They were like, no, this is a good time, this feels right. So no, understandable. It's just perspective time wise, that's kind of where we're at. So in 2023, they obviously put up which is still now live, the GoFundMe page and a couple of videos at the time. Really sad one actually. I remember
Yep.
watching where they are really heartbroken, kind of explaining Francis' condition. Um, yeah, it's a tough watch to be honest. I actually felt really. I don't normally get like upset or sad over just really much anymore, but even that was like, man, that kind of hit me hard. Like, honestly, it was like, man, like kids, you kids, you think everything's just fine and dandy and like you're gonna live forever, and just to hear like another child's life might be ending shorter or shortly. It's just like, man, that's not. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. Doesn't it's not right. But anyway, we're yeah. I went on a tangent there. Sorry. um, Talking about kind of post that quite a few people donated. I think of the live donation amount is over $350,000, which is a lot of money. That is a lot of money that has gone towards. Well, what has it actually gone to, Mel? What would you put that to? Is that mainly research, or is that for treatment, or a bit of both?
Yes. So let me see here. So they are kind of exploring every and all options. So with a rare disease, basically for scientists to be able to study it, they need essentially literally tissues and blood and the parts of the person that have this disease so that they can make disease models about it and that they can actually study it um, to kind of come up with different treatments and things like that. So they've been basically, I think, exploring any and all options. I know that they're trying to build a DHDDS disease model and kind of banking blood and tissue samples so that labs can study it from around the world. And they're also looking into novel treatments like ASO therapy that would potentially help to stop the disease in its track and maybe even backtrack a little bit and help her to get better. So and also not just like the research and potential therapy for her, but she's seeing doctors all over the country and has specialists and doctor's appointments just to, you know, take any treatment she can get now. They've investigated, more um, traditional therapies for patients like with epilepsy, because that's one of her like symptoms, and she has special education needs, so I think she goes to a specialized school. So basically, living with a rare disease is just a very, very expensive thing. You're just constantly going to doctors. You constantly have, I think she just got a back brace as well. I think she has scoliosis. Um, so there's just a lot of medical needs, and all of it's very, very expensive because most of this stuff isn't something that's covered by insurance. Um, Again, I'm in the US, so, and obviously Francis is in the US. So most of what we're talking about here is from a US perspective. And yeah, and unfortunately, it looks like a lot of just federal research funding for rare disease and stuff like that is going to also be cut as well. So it just puts even more, back on the people if we're not getting kind of that government research funding as well. It's just really relies on people to fund stuff themselves.
All right. I mean, you mentioned it there. You started bringing up some terms like ASO again, which jokingly before we started
Yeah.
recording, I had to go at trying to spell it out, and I still couldn't. Everyone, so we're gonna let Mel do the big boy words. I'll stick to the little words. But I feel like we can park the kind of journey kind of portion. We can pause that for a moment. I feel like if we kind of go through now and kind of define a few terms that maybe you've seen
Yeah.
around like Francis and stuff, because Mel's come to be prepared with like a few things she wants to like bring up and kind of like teach us essentially. She's just so we get a little bit
Yeah.
more informed. So I'll let I'll let you take the I'll let you take the wheel for this next bit. You can just in any way you like.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll kind of, I know, like you just said, we've kind of talked about stuff, so hopefully we'll backtrack a little bit, and I have kind
Hmm.
of a little thing I wrote up to hopefully describe everything a little bit better. So essentially, a rare disease is a disease that affects fewer than 1 in 2,000 people. So for those of us in the United States, um, we have something called the Orphan Drug Act, and that defines a rare disease as a disease or condition that affects less than 200,000 total people in the United States. Um, so, not that many people. Um, and kind of going a step further, I think I've already said this as well, is we have these ultra rare diseases. So, that's something that affects fewer than 1 in 50,000 people. So again, in the US, that's less than 7,000 people total with that condition. They're also called nano rare disease. Ultra rare disease, I think, is the more common term, at least that I've used in my work. DHDDS, what Francis has, definitely falls under that ultra or nano rare category because as of right now, there's only 70 cases known worldwide. DHDDS was only confirmed as a disease causing gene in 2021. So I think that's basically why Francis was diagnosed in 2021, because that's when essentially the scientific and medical community actually discovered what this disease was. Um, so, and even further, so you can have different variants in that gene. So Francis has a specific variant in DHDDS that only, I think, as of right now, only 6 other people have it. So out of those 70 people with these variants in DHDDS, the specific variant that Francis has, only 6 other people have. So again, we're talking about genes, DHDDS, what's a gene, what's DHDDS. So you can kind of think of a gene as we have DNA in our bodies. That's kind of like the master cookbook that carries all of the recipes for genes. And the genes make what our bodies need to function, all of the proteins. So the genes are basically recipes to make proteins that our body needs to function. And the gene variant is kind of like when our DNA has a typo in it. Sometimes this typo can be meaningless, sometimes they can actually be helpful or beneficial, but sometimes they can unfortunately cause a disease. Um, so, what is the DHDDS gene? Think of your body as this kitchen. It's making thousands of proteins every day. For the proteins to work, they need an ingredient called dolichol. And dolichol is the protein that helps the final step in preparing each of the proteins in our body. The DHDDS gene provides the instructions for making dolichol, which helps make part of an enzyme. Think of an enzyme as kind of like a tool that resides in the protein prep station in your cells in your body. Um, so once a protein is made, glycosylation is the final step to making the protein. It's kind of like decorating it with literally a sugar molecule. Um, so that helps the protein know how to fold properly. So you can think of a protein as a 3D thing. So it kind of needs to know how to fold up so that it can function properly and get delivered to the correct place in the body. So dolichol, which is the product of DHDDS gene, can be thought of kind of as that tray that carries these sugars to the protein. So without it, the sugars don't make it to the proteins. And because of this, some of the proteins in the body aren't decorated correctly with the sugars. So this causes them not to be processed or fold correctly. So basically, the body doesn't really know what to do with this protein now, since it's not in a functional configuration. It's not formed properly. So this is kind of what leads to the disease. So basically, this can lead to seizures, movement disorders, developmental delays, all things that are seen with in people with DHDDS. So for Frances, having this pathogenic DHDDS gene means her body can't reliably complete this finishing step for its proteins being made. So that's why even though the DHDDS gene is just one recipe out of thousands, having that variant like hers has a huge impact on her body, unfortunately. Um, but again, we were talking a little bit about potential therapies. So there's something called ASO therapy. Um, I'll say it out loud just because we talked about it. It stands for antisense oligonucleotide. So as I had said earlier, one of the therapies that they're looking into is ASO therapy, and that is antisense oligonucleotide therapy. Um, so basically, the hope is that Frances would be able to receive this therapy. And you can think of this therapy as like placing a sticky note over the bad recipe in the cookbook. So it basically tells that variant in her DNA, hey, this is actually the correct recipe to make the DHDDS protein. Um, so that would allow her body to, instead of making this kind of dysfunctional protein, it would be able to make the healthy version of that protein, and ideally reduce any of the damage and slow disease progression. So her body would be making and decorating all of the proteins properly with the correct sugars so that they're going to the right places and not accumulating in tissues and causing all of the, the seizures and all of those type of symptoms and whatnot. Yeah, so that's part of, what the fundraising also goes to. The ASOs are developed by the lorem Foundation. It's a nonprofit that creates custom-based treatments for patients with ultra-rare diseases. So even though they try to keep the treatment itself free for patients, there's just still so much that goes into, you know, it doesn't actually cover getting the treatment, going to the doctor, all of that kind of stuff. So that again isn't something covered by insurance. That's something people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars out of pocket for.
All right. Well said. Firstly, wow, there's a lot that goes into this, isn't there? There's a lot of layers for something that, again, you mentioned Francis was only diagnosed in 2021. There seems to have been a lot of kind of groundbreaking research, would you say, like to get
Yes,
to this point, and a lot of new, like,
absolutely.
yeah, a lot of like first time kind of what is this, explaining it, exploring it. Okay, good stuff. Going through
Yeah,
everything
essentially
you've.
Francis is setting like the foundation for in the years to
Mm.
come help, it's just so important, and I don't know the word for it right now, but it sets up just, for people that are discovered to also have this disease or are born in the future. Francis is essentially setting that foundation for research. so that people that discover they have this disease later or born later with this disease, might actually have treatment options so that they, once they're born and they know they have this disease, they can start treatments right away so that they have better health outcomes.
Hmm. Yeah, no, she is literally, as you said, yeah, the foundation, or like making paving the path, paving the way. I suppose you could say, yeah, in this
Exactly.
past 4 years, and going through kind of some of the key points you mentioned there. Obviously, you mentioned rare diseases and how it affects 1 in 2,000 people, and it being such a minute amount of people. Could you kind of kind of a bit more broadly explain like how these are discovered? How are these obviously like someone thinks there's something not quite right with them, or is this picked up at another stage? Like, how do you go from not having the rare disease to being confirmed? Essentially, like, what is the
So, kind of one of the things with rare disease, which is kind of like a talking point, is even though each individual rare disease is rare, combined, they're not rare. There are so many people living with rare diseases that combined, it's significant. It's so much of our population. And yeah, so in Francis's case, her rare disease is a genetic rare disease. So, like I said, meaning there's kind of this variant or typo in her DNA that causes disease. So, not all rare diseases necessarily are genetic diseases, but many of them are. Um, but some other type of rare diseases are sort of just rare cancers, fall under that category as well, and just kind of other rare diseases which might not necessarily affect a lot of people in the world, but aren't necessarily something that you're born with, like a genetic disease. Um, but different countries, at least in the U.S., we have something called, well, actually, when a mother gets pregnant, sometimes they'll do carrier screening where they will literally do a genetic screening on the baby before it's even born to see if it has any type of rare disease. And also when babies are born, I think this is state dependent what they test on. I could be wrong about that. But when the baby's born, they basically do a little heel prick and they take some blood and they screen it against a bunch of rare diseases to see if your child has one of those so that they can start treatment right away. Of course, again, there's so many rare diseases out there. Some of them are just being discovered, yet to be discovered. So those kind of screenings usually test for the more common quotes around common ones. Um, so yeah, basically, unfortunately, for a lot of rare diseases, like these ultra rare ones, you really don't know you have the disease until you start presenting with symptoms and start going to a bunch of doctors, and the doctors can't really put things together and they can't find a cause, like a more normal cause for what would describe your symptoms. And then eventually they kind of have to do something called like whole genome screening, where they look at the entire recipe or your entire cookbook, all of the DNA in your body, um, and kind of search to see if there's anything that doesn't really match up with what's quote unquote typical or normal. And then they kind of go from there. And yeah, it's a lot of work to kind of try to figure that out.
yeah, it does sound like a lot of work actually. Yeah, a lot of layers to defining what is the rare disease or rare cancer, or so that's probably where, if I had to guess, that's probably where John and Zoe were with Francis around before 2021. I would have thought then, kind of. Would you
Mm-hmm.
say, or yeah, they're probably so that's like the first. I wouldn't say like the first step, but like the first diagnoses, or first kind of initial consultation of like, okay, we think it might be something. It'll be in this range essentially. Okay. And you
Yeah.
mentioned about the ultra rare diseases as well, only affecting 1 in 50,000 people, which that's it's really that's not many people. Like there's 50,000 people in Iceland, which is an entire country. Like if you put it into that, well, it's about 60, but it's yeah, there's not that's not many people.
Like 300,000.
What? No, did I?
Yeah,
Is it 300?
Iceland's almost at 400,000 now. They're getting there.
I'm gonna Google. I'm gonna Google another country later with 50,000 population. Go, wow, it's only got 50. I'm thinking of maybe like Greenland or something that has probably like 50,000 people. But anyway, sorry. Yeah. For some reason, no, you are right. They have 300,000. I don't know why. Why did I think Iceland had 50,000? I don't know. 300. No, you're correct. Pardon me. So yeah, you talked about rare diseases, ultra rare diseases. We're kind of explaining what DHDDS falls under, kind of in that rare category, the ultra rare category. I don't know because you talked
Yeah, I
about
was gonna say, I
ASOs
mean,
and
you've been asking questions, so yeah, since I always like to get questions because I
yeah.
obviously have a more insight into all of this since, it's my
So,
day
so
job.
okay, yeah. More broadly then. So essentially, so where are we at now then essentially because obviously you mentioned that she's potentially having a back brace and I don't know I can't remember. I'm not very good at numbers, so I'm not going to start guessing her age because I can't guess a population amount, but she's around what 13, 14 now at the moment.
Yeah, I think she's 13. I think she turned 13 at the end of last year. Sometime within the last 6 months, I'm pretty sure she turned 13.
Yeah, she just turned 13. So they're obviously at a point now where they've clearly made some progress, which is good. Can we talk a little bit about like kind of what kind of progress, and obviously like the more research, and you also mentioned about the 6 or 7 families. Now I remember Zoe mentioned about this kind of initially when we first found out that there were some other groups. You know, there was like 7 people or 6 or 7 other kids around the world,
Yeah,
and
so
the
that's
fact
what
that
I was
like she's
saying.
met one of them as well.
Yeah, yeah. So there's about 6 known kids that have her specific variant in DHDDS, but total there's about 70 known cases with DHDDS. So basically, they just have different typos, but the typos are in that same gene. So there, so that's also one of the hard things about rare diseases is they all kind of present with their symptoms differently, slightly. So some people start developing symptoms earlier, some, a little later. Some are more affected by certain things, like some have more, maybe problems walking or tremors, whereas some people might have more issues with like epilepsy and seizures. So that's kind of part of the whole thing that goes into research. It's like, do these different variants matter in terms of, you know, what we might be looking for? So basically, also, there's something called a natural history study that is done in rare diseases, where they're literally just kind of studying the people with the disease to see kind of how it plays out and, what their symptoms are and how they react to like certain treatments that they might be getting. Um, yeah, just to know how to better treat and kind of like assess the disease and have measures of if they're doing better or not when they do get treatments.
Okay, so can we obviously take anything from you mentioned like the sorry, what was the example you just used then? Oh, sorry, I was writing down a question while you were saying use it like a tremors or something like that. Can we learn because
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been mentioned, but like is Parkinson's kind of like a like sub like if those kind of
Yeah.
effects are apparent to DHDDS?
Yeah. Yeah, so they'll sort of look at, diseases that have similar symptoms as part of, the research and trying to look for treatments and see like, oh, this kind of presents in the same way. Maybe we can, try certain drugs to see if that's helpful or not. Yeah.
No, that's good because I was curious because obviously there's it's such a rare disease, but there are so many like side effects and things that could happen to people with the disease. Obviously, like I've never met the band. I don't personally know them or anything. There might be things that has happened. I mean, can you talk a little bit about seizures as well? Because that's something that seems to have popped up a few times. I mentioned Zoe's mentioned that she's had seizures. Apparently, they've been
Mhm.
in a recent update because she's updated. I think it was late last year. She updated everyone, said, the seizures are calming down, not as frequent. They still happen, but they're not as bad at the moment, which is a step in the right direction. Can you talk a little bit about like seizures and bits and pieces there?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure just because this is that's something specific to Frances's journey herself. I mean, I know she was having seizures, and like you said, I think they said that they've been, going to certain doctors that have been looking into stuff, and I guess have, found some treatments that they've been giving her that have been helping with those seizures. Um, so that's awesome, because that's also kind of the what can come up in some issues with rare diseases is, they find these diseases such as Parkinson's that kind of, you have certain symptoms that mimic it, and so you try drugs for this rare disease because it's like, oh, this helped Parkinson's patients and they have similar symptoms, so we'll try it in this rare disease patient and see if it's helpful. Sometimes it can be helpful, sometimes it's not helpful at all, because basically in the cases where it's not helpful, it might be because even though the symptoms are similar, why the symptoms are happening are different, and that's why the drug might not be working. So I think that's really awesome that they seem to have found something that's kind of, helping her seizures calm down. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. No, I didn't expect you to be an expert in seizures and seizure-like events and things like that. No, it was something that I remember has been mentioned a few times, and I felt like that's something we all know what like a seizure will be presumed
Mm-hmm.
to be
Yeah, it
something
can
like
be
that.
really
So
scary. Yeah.
it absolutely can. Yeah, the N. Lorem Foundation. Now, if I've been sensible and I've edited this properly on the YouTube version, there should be a video playing of Zoe at. She was doing a talk. I think it was at the N. Lorem Foundation, or it was like
Uh, it was
adjacent to.
for it was for Global Genes.
Thank
So
you,
Global Genes
Global
is
Genes.
kind of this rare disease advocacy group that kind of helps rare disease advocates and families and patients and scientists connect. So yeah, so that was kind of a cool crossover in my life where um, I attend certain things like that for just part of my professional development. And they're doing this rare advocacy exchange where they have different kind of webinars or seminars throughout the year. And Zoe happened to be doing the kickoff and keynote
Mm.
um, webinar for the year. So yeah, that was really, really cool.
Yep, it's to be honest, it's one of the few things. It's another thing that really sparked like a hey, this would be a good time to like pause and actually like take note and be like, where are we at? Because she was doing this talk at the moment, and if I again if I've edited this correctly, you should be watching the thing, and I'll also leave a link in the description because Mel sent it to me and be like, because I remember we were talking a little bit before this. She was like, oh, perfect timing. Zoe's doing this talk for the global genes. Yeah, something.
Yep.
And
Yeah. Yeah. They
yeah,
have the blog with the full YouTube video. So hopefully you can put the link in there. And yeah, there's a full YouTube video of her talk. And she's joined by CEO of Global Genes and not to be confused with myself,
oh
but
no.
another Mel, um, who is one of the other rare moms who has, I think she has two kids with DHDDS, and I know her and Zoe um, have been working together. Mel had founded Cure DHDDS over in the UK, and I know Zoe's been working with her, even though they have Frances Change My Life specifically for Frances. I think she also kind of was helping establish the Cure DHDDS here in the United States as well.
Forgive me if I'm getting this incorrect, but Mel, the other Mel, the one talking about, is the one you
Mm-hmm.
may have seen on Zoe or the band's social media because they went to meet up. Is that correct? Like
Yes.
they went to go meet up and kind of.
I think so. I think so. Yeah. I know they've met up, I think, with a couple families, and I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh.
yeah, I think there might, again, I could be completely wrong, but I just know, it's scrolling through social media that I have seen a couple times where they've met up with families. So,
Mm. Yeah, no, I'm pretty positive I saw that on there as well, and I recognised the kids because after Zoe did her presentation, Mel actually did another one as well. As you'll probably be watching in the background now, if I've done this correctly. But yes, obviously I'll leave a full link in the description. So N. Lorem, we talked about kind of going through genes, going through the DHDDS and ultra rare diseases, kind of gene variants, kind of breaking down what DHDDS is and kind of as close to layman's terms as we kind of get it without, sounding too silly. Yeah, I, I feel like it might be a good opportunity, unless there's any other like kind of higher level, more technical stuff we can talk about. Maybe talk about a little bit more of the charity side now, Mel. Or was there anything else you wanted to like branch off in? Because I could ask questions, but they're going to be so kind of base level that I feel like you kind of what you've explained is a good standing point for people to go, oh, okay, this is very complicated. It's still in the early stages. They're making good research and it's moving in the right direction. I think we can hopefully say so. But if is there anything else you wanted to bring up or talk about related to more like the kind of technical scientific side that a layman like me does not know about?
Um, I don't really think so, unless, like you said, I mean, feel free to ask any of your questions that you have. Feel like it would be helpful to other people. But I guess the only other thing, not necessarily technical wise, I can think of, but just to mention that most of these rare diseases, like up to 90% of rare diseases, they don't have an FDA approved treatment. And again, that's in the US, the FDA is um, our governing body that, approves drug treatments. So it's just a lot of it falls on the family and their friends and fans if they have fans in this case to kind of go out and spread awareness to try to help get funding for treatments for rare diseases. And again, that's why I try to, in my personal life, advocate for a lot of the rare diseases, either ones that I've personally worked on or ones that I have a personal connection to. Um, and that's why thank you again for inviting me to come talk on this podcast, because I think, a lot of people don't know about rare diseases and know kind of like that struggle that goes into not only, being a person with a rare disease or taking care of a person with a rare disease, but basically you have to become your own doctor in a sense, and you have to be your own social worker and care coordinator, and it's just a lot of work for the parents involved. And like Zoe's doing just such an amazing job um, with everything that she's done, um, trying to get everything out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you again, that's why I'm here to like kind of spread a bit more awareness as well, just about the
Yeah.
disease, everything everything related to it, because most people just don't are just not familiar with something that affects 70 people in the world because there are, gosh, at last count, what are we up to, like 8 billion? I can't remember. Like that's so little people. And yeah, it's it's good that we're getting research on anything that could happen to a human. That's always, I think that's a good thing. If we can kind of cover all the bases, kind of, yeah, that's a good thing. A good place, Mel, to look now is with the most recent update that Zoe has done on the fundraiser, for Francis Changed My Life GoFundMe, which actually was June 30th of last year. Which is we said it previously just now that it was late last year. It was actually middle of last year, which wow, the year's going quickly. Yeah, wow, it's been nearly a year since we shared our story, and it's almost halfway to fundraising goals. Thank you so much. Every day I stop and think of you all and how much you've pushed us all forward. Frances is currently doing better on the combination of meds and supplements she's been on since November 2023. She's able to go to speed school, albeit 1 hour away, which, wow, it's a long way for a school drive, Christ. I didn't know that. And participate in learning and socializing with our kids with varying needs, which is good. That's good. You mentioned about the certain types of schools earlier, didn't you? What are these
Yeah,
kind
I
of?
think I know they've done a fundraiser, I think at her school that I think some
That's right.
people actually attended. Yeah, I don't know if you talked to on your other episodes, I think.
Yeah, I did actually in
Oh my
January. There
god,
was a.
blanking on everyone's names.
I had Steve on, and that was to do. That was
Steve,
that
thank
time.
you. I think Steve was there.
Yes, I think he was. That was the.
And then I think the one that they had, because they've been doing a lot of local stuff in Portland. Like they had like a beer release and a wine release, kind of like side quest type fundraising things. And I know they've also, yeah, they've done like auctions. I know I still need to get it framed. I I bought one of their, it's literally been like 2 years now. I don't even remember what it was called. Um, but that, I think some of the proceeds went to Francis Changed My Life as well. So yeah, they, in addition to the GoFundMe, they've been doing a lot of other fundraising initiatives, and of course they have on the PTM Mercado, they have their rare disease specific shirts and other kinds of merch that they donate um, to Francis Changed My Life and rare disease stuff.
Yes, that's right. They've got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies trying to kind of get the word out and try and fundraise as best they can in an opportunity. Yeah, they're musicians. They go play
Yeah.
shows and get people in. So makes sense to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Essentially, they have two jobs now:
Yeah.
musicians and rare disease parents.
And they're doing really well at both, to be honest, because it's. I don't feel like, and I don't feel like people who have gone to shows who have gone like, man, it's really taken away from the experience. I feel like they've done a really good job of keeping, the shows good, like and keeping along. So yeah, why they're doing a hell of a job. Yeah, two, as you said, yeah, two jobs at once, and parents as well, which is no mean feat, especially as well. And well, now they've got like a whole. Francis comes up on stage as well now. I've seen basically
Mm-hmm.
the whole, basically like the Chris Black onward
Yeah.
kind of life cycle. So whereas previously she was kind of, you knew about her but you never saw her essentially. Like for example, in the noise pollution music video, she's blurred out. You know it's her. I'm guessing it's her anyway. It could be a stunt double. I don't know. It could be, but I'm guessing it's her. Stunt double for Francis. There we go. Yes, she could be an action film soon. Anyway, yeah, and
She's
she's a hell of.
probably taller than me. I could be her stunt double. No.
Yeah, apparently she's quite good as well. She's quite energetic in a way where, as you mentioned, like John and Zoe, maybe aren't as like outspoken maybe on stage, and she just does not care, and she's just out there and she's living her best life
Yeah.
up there on the
She's a
microphone.
star. She's a star. She's a
Yes,
ham.
she might have her own band one day. You never know. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
The Francis's. No, that the double S is kind of doesn't. We'll work on the name. We'll work on the name. But anyway, going back to the update. Yes, you might have seen that John and I. This is Zoe, by the way. Have been touring since February 2024, with a few weeks at home and here and there. We've been focusing on working and doing what we love, and also raising awareness. That is also a crucial component. We are in phase 5 of Polara. Is that correct? Yeah, Polara, to figure out what existing
I think that's
drugs.
just yeah, that's just a company.
Oh, right. Oh, fair
I
enough.
mean,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Didn't want to butcher it completely. Existing drugs and supplements compounds may help DHDDS patients. These things can take quite a while, but we are discovering more information each month. Hopefully, the endpoint is something that can truly help us manage symptoms or delay the progression. Outside of this, there's still a lot to understand about the disease itself, so time and funds have also been going to that. Understanding what will be the quickest and most effective treatment will likely take years, but we are focusing on ASO, RNA, and gene therapies, which we previously have had explained to us by Mel. Things we know not to be possible despite the gargantuan costs. So just a little catch up of like, yeah, things are making progress. The endpoint is something that can truly help us, and they're making progress. Is kind of what I'm reading from this, which is good. We also, yeah, we mentioned ASO, RNA, and gene therapies previously. Continuing, in the meantime, we are really monitoring Frances and tracking her day to day to establish what her baseline is, and to really contribute to the data and doctors in future will need, which, as we said earlier, she is literally paving the way for discoveries in
Yep.
DHDDS as well, which is incredible because she's a 13-year-old girl. This is not even an adult, which is incredible. We also played a show recently. This is a little bit longer ago, so in Green Bay. We met some lovely people that bought shirts and contributed to the cause. Truly grateful for their generosity and support. She may also make an appearance. I probably should have checked this beforehand. Edgefield concerts on the lawn in July 20th. This was last year.
I think that's what we were talking about.
I think so. Yeah, I think she was playing on
Videos are
some shows
from.
then.
Yep.
Yeah, and that is the end of an update that was the last most recent update. Obviously, we've had this recent Global Gene talk that Zoe's been on as well, but I kind of don't feel like we got as much like up to date information. I can't remember. Has there been any other updates previously?
I was gonna say, I was gonna look. I know so many things get shared on in social media in like stories, and of course then they go away. So so I can't go back and reference them. Um,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's
like
that's
someone. Yeah, I know they've done some of those like basketball um fundraiser thingies too, like come sit courtside with us. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, okay. So on January 15th, wow, my phone is like cutting off the text for some reason on Instagram right now. I
oh, come
can't
on,
read it,
fun.
but yeah, this was the post I think about the scoliosis where she needs a back brace now. And I remember seeing some posts about her actually getting fitted for that because I think she chose the U.S. flag, I think, as the design on her back
Oh, right.
brace.
I do remember. I think I remember seeing that. Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool to hear. That was I think yeah, I do remember that actually. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And it
Hmm.
looks like in December of 2024 was when they were at the an lorem colloquium dinner where it looks like they got to do some stuff and meet some other rare kids and families and make artwork. Yeah, I think now that I'm kind of ringing a bell in my head, I feel like they did some artwork that they were auctioning off, that N Lorem was auctioning off. Yeah, and they also have the Rare Village Foundation um, fundraiser as well on the Francis Changed My Life Instagram. I think they were running that on Giving Tuesday this year, but it looks like you can still donate to it
Yeah. That no, that's this.
as you do.
Hmm. That feels like a good
Link
segue to
all the
come.
things.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying, so as you usually do, link all of the things in the.
Yeah, this feels like a natural place to move on to our like one of the last things I wanted to bring up today is how people can contribute essentially and our call to action as Mel has described it. But yeah, I we talk about the charity
This is where the
the
medical writer comes out in me.
yeah this charity work is obviously needed because this is a lot of research, a lot of treatment is needed, and this stuff is not cheap. I'm guessing, so the money is required. So I, as you're an expert in this, you'll have a better understanding of like costs and kind of what they've had to kind of pay so far to kind of get to this point, because obviously the medical stuff is not um, government subsidized in the United States, unfortunately. Yeah, do you feel like you have an understanding on kind of what they've been paying wise? I don't know. If that makes sense.
Uh, so this is actually on Francis Changed My Life right now. They have written the figure of yearly costs, just for hospital bills, stuff like that, are over $250,000 a year. That's also probably not even including any potential, supplements or drugs that they're trying out. So all of that, yeah, this, over a lifetime, you're looking at millions of dollars literally in care. If it's costing $250,000 a year minimum, 4 years later, you're already at $1 million spent on healthcare. Um, so yeah, it's extremely expensive.
Yeah, that is a lot. I didn't expect it to be anywhere near $250,000 a year. That is incredible. That is so much money.
Yeah,
And
and I mean maybe for our non-US people, just somebody like me who's relatively healthy, but I did like physical therapy last year and went to some doctor's appointments, had some procedures done. I already like I paid out of pocket probably like $7,000 last year for being a relatively healthy person, and adding in the costs that I pay for my health insurance and what my company contributes. My healthcare was probably about $20,000 last year. And again, that's for a relatively healthy person. So just to kind of set a baseline, that
yeah,
$250,000 is actually kind of, it's a lot more, but yeah, healthcare is expensive. So when you have a rare disease, it's astronomically expensive.
yeah, it's an unfathomable amount because it's an unfathomable disease at the moment. We're still
Rare disease.
understanding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a rare disease, quite literally. So yeah, yeah, this feels like a good. What? Let me get my thoughts together. So she yeah, not to mention the potential costs. We've already mentioned about the cost, the ASO therapy. There are ways people can help though. Obviously, we've got the GoFundMe, or they've got the GoFundMe up, which is currently still ticking along very nicely. Obviously, you can contribute to the research, which so many people have been very generous to donate as well, and there have been some big donations on there as well, like four-figure amounts, five-figure amounts, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of money people were just putting towards Francis. That's incredible. A lot more than I have going for me at the moment. So yes, kudos to them. And I have donated before, and it feels like a good opportunity to put a little bit more money towards it as well. I've donated a couple of times, obviously, like just something. You could put something towards it. Anything can help, realistically. So I'll be doing
For sure.
another
Yep.
donation after this as well,
Yeah.
just to
And that's
kind of
the
keep
other
things.
thing. Donations don't have to be large to be, every little bit counts. And the more people, that's why outreach is important, because if you get 100 people to donate $5, that adds up.
Yeah, I look at the goal we've done. We look at the amount of money they've raised so far and the amount of different people who have donated, and it is adding up. Yeah, obviously, yeah, if you can't donate for whatever reason, if things are tough, sharing the story of Francis, obviously.
Hmm.
Obviously, we're in the kind of more inner circle of PTM fans, so we've known about it for a while, but still, some people are unaware. And I think about the time that John was on the H3H3 podcast about a year and a half ago, actually. And I think he came on there because one of the guys on the show had played at them a live show, because they're cool like that. They'll get a guy on to come and just join in with them. Someone who's like on the crew on the studio or whatever.
Hmm.
And they obviously got talking with the guy, and I don't think they actually realised John came in there not going there to talk about Francis. He was just going in to say hi basically, and I think they spent like 25 minutes talking about like what they've been through and Francis's condition. You could just see it. Like I don't think they actually realised like wow how much they've been through and how like put together John is still in his current state. And yeah, you see firsthand like what it's like for people who have never heard of it, because yeah, that first time you find out, you're like, wow, that is just truly cruel. Like, man. But we could share, we can donate, advocating for rare disease, advocating wise for rare disease support, research, faster access to treatments.
Yeah. Like you kind of already said, like sharing, part of advocacy is, sharing people's stories, sharing fundraisers. But something more, I guess, meaningful and things like that. Part of advocacy, like really stepping it up next level, is, contacting your local state legislators, um, those, petitions to the government, things like that, supporting legislation that supports funding for rare diseases and support for people with rare diseases and disabilities, and you know anything and everything that's just supporting these people. and we're, supporting research and funding and making sure that those doing research are still funded, and yeah, again, like participating in things like Rare Disease Day, which is the last day of February, so that already passed, but that's a yearly thing. And again, these are like general things for any rare disease, but any exposure is helpful when being an advocate, and just showing up on a daily basis in your life. You probably know somebody with a rare disease, um, and just helping out and helping advocate for them, and if they have any special needs, that kind of thing. Um, if you're in a workplace with them, advocating for certain workplace accommodations are a thing here in the United States to help people um, be able to contribute and work still. Um, yeah, so a bunch of different things.
Yeah, thank you for sort of kind of explaining that a little bit better to me. Sorry, I just the word advocate, and my mind went blank there for a moment. I was trying to think what exactly, but no, yes, spread the word, kind of get the word out there, and um, as Mel said, perfectly, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I think kind of we've kind of gone through. I've gone through all the notes that I kind of had. Really, I feel like we've made it. Obviously, go watch go watch. Obviously, it'll be in the background, but if you wanted to go watch the presentation Zoe's done, also that Mel was involved with, not the Mel we've got on, but the other parent of the HDDS children, you can go do that. I'll leave links in for that. I'll leave links in for GoFundMe's. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Mel? I feel like we've done a good job today, but not an amazing job. I feel like I could have done better today. I have to be honest, but I feel like getting the word out there. Well, a lot of
Yeah,
this is.
exactly.
I'm not.
It's not about I think we did a great job, Mark. Again, just take you're being an advocate, just taking part in you know making an episode from your podcast to center on this is being a great advocate. So um not not everything has to be perfect or what you idealize is perfect. Any little bit helps.
Oh, you're very kind. That's
I'm
very
sure I
nice of you.
stumbled through a bunch of stuff too.
I mean,
Hopefully I didn't confuse
uh,
everyone.
well, I mean, I think there'll be a little bit of confusion because there'll be a lot of new words that people might not have heard of and things of that nature.
For
But
sure. And again, you don't necessarily even have to understand any of that to, still put the word out. And, at the end of the day, the the fact of the matter is somebody has a disease. It's not there's no cure for it right now. There's no, treatments for it specifically right now. And uh she needs all of the help she can get by, helping share the word and raise money for her healthcare, essentially.
yeah, no, well said. And I feel like a good place to end it, as like a last little mini topic, would be a positive future and what that could be, and her getting healthier, and her hopefully not having as many seizures anymore, not having, you know, kind of understanding what her body's going through, and hopefully her development continues, and she can live a hopefully a long and healthy life because that's what we want, as much as we possibly can now. And obviously they've made some good steps in the right direction, but they've probably still got a lot more work to do, and there's probably a lot more unfortunate pain and suffering to go through. Hopefully not, but yeah. Where do you see where do you see a positive future? Like, what is? I feel like things. I don't know about you, but I feel like things are kind of moving in the right direction with Francis. How do you? I don't know,
Yeah.
this is a weird question to ask, I suppose, but like things are getting better, right? It's just I don't know. Is this a weird question to ask? I don't know.
I mean, I again, not I can't speak. I don't personally know. But yeah, from what Zoe said, I think there's a lot of good things happening. They're doing a lot in terms of pushing the scientific research, and connecting with families all over the world so that they can contribute to these studies. And yeah, it seems like they've, you know, finally assembled a team of doctors that, you know, are communicating better and able to kind of get these treatments together. And yeah, them being accepted for the ASO therapy is really exciting. So hopefully, fingers crossed that that works out and they're able to, you know, get that therapy to Francis, and hopefully, you know, getting the therapy is one thing, the therapy actually working and being beneficial is another thing. I think there was, um, again, another patient, not a DHDDS patient, but another rare patient that I think has just received an ASO therapy and I think was doing well. So, yeah, that's definitely optimism there. Um, you know, a future where symptoms are under control and maybe even reversed some. So,
Well, that sounds like a damn good future to me. I don't know about you, Mel, but that sounds really lovely. That could be, that's positive, yeah. And I feel like we've kind of been, yeah, I feel like this is a good place to end the episode now. I feel like we've gone through kind of a little timeline of kind of the beginning, kind of like where fans found out, obviously like the diagnosis stages, the more technical side of it, the more scientific side, and kind of the research side of it. And then kind of like how people can contribute as well, which is pretty obvious. There is like a
mhm.
couple of places you can do that as well. So I'll yeah, I'll just like to say thank you to everyone for listening. I'll let Mel, if she's got any like final words or anything you want to like leave to the fans for people who have made it this far into the episode. Yeah. Is anything you want to
Yeah,
last say?
thanks for listening.
That's a good place to end it. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you very much, guys. If this yeah, I like this. I like doing this. It was good. I felt like it was a good thing to do. I do these podcasts. I make no money off them at all. This is not about that. It's about me just trying to talk about something I enjoy and kind of, talk to fans and have a good time and try and learn a few things as well. And, the whole process of me starting this
Yeah,
podcast was,
exactly.
was to learn how to like make videos and edit and stuff. And today I'm learning about ultra rare diseases and DHDDS and what antisense oligon. I'm not going to be able to say the word. I thought I'd try it then, but
Uh, you got it. You got it.
oligon clue Fluidtide?
Oligonucleotide.
Oligonucleotide. Thank you. There we go. See, this is
Yeah.
why I'm in. This is why I'm in construction. So, anyway, right.
I
Lovely to
mean,
talk to everyone.
DNA is like constructing the body.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I see where. Yeah, fair point. Okay. Right, lovely. Thank you very much for doing this, Mel. Your knowledge and wisdom is greatly
Yeah,
appreciated. I would not have been able to do this without you or someone with your level of knowledge. Thank you for coming along. Maybe I don't know what the future holds, but maybe down the line, if I ever have you back on, which I'm sure I will at some point, we can do a little update as well or something like this. I think that'd be good. I think it'd be good to have you
sounds
back on.
good.
So lovely. Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
much for having me.
And thank you for the fans, the listeners for listening. Take care, guys. Thank you very much. Good night.